All right, concept number 2 in Unit 2, another review concept. So this is completing the square. Now, there's a couple things we need to remember when completing the square, and one of them is the square root property. So basically all of this is saying is if I have something squared equals something, so x squared equals 15, for example, and I take the square root of both sides, my answer is going to have a positive and a negative answer. I'm going to have two answers because if I multiply something that is positive times a positive, I get a positive. And if I multiply a negative by a negative, I get a positive. So I really have two solutions. So if x squared equals a and a is a non-negative real number, meaning it's a positive real number, then the solution is the plus and minus square root of that number. So if you remember from last year, we made those big plus and minus signs. So you got to remember plus and minus. There's two solutions. So that's part one of the things to remember when completing the square. The second part to remember is how to complete the square. So I need to complete the square of x squared plus bx. The plus c, we just move over to the other side. We don't care about that right away. We just want the x squared plus bx. And the thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our leading coefficient is 1. If there isn't a 1 there, we got to figure out how to get rid of it, and I'll show you in one of the examples down here how to do that. But we want to add half of b squared to both sides. Okay, so remember from last year, we wrote it out. We drew a box on one side and we drew the box on the other side. And then we figured out what our b was, we cut it in half, and then we squared it and added it in that box on both sides. So here in this example, this b is 6, so half of b would be 3, so they did 6 divided by 2 squared. So 3 squared is 9, so they add that to both sides. All right, and then this is a perfect square. That was the whole reason why we did that. So they can factor this into a binomial squared. A binomial has two terms, remember that. Okay, binomial has two terms. So basically that binomial becomes x plus, or whatever sign this is, half of b squared. And there's another way we can write it over here. If the numbers are a little too confusing, we can say, well, we add half of b squared and then we factor it to x plus half of b squared. So let's do an example. If this was a little too confusing, let's do an example together. So we want to solve x squared equals 27 minus 6x by completing the square. We have to do a little rearranging first in order to complete the square. We need the x squared and the x on the same side. So in order to do that, we have to add 6x. So now we have something that looks like this. We have x squared plus 6x equals 27. Now, it's okay. We want the c on that side. We don't want it on this side. It's going to be too confusing. We're just going to move it over anyway. So this, oh look at that, is exactly like this one. We just have to do the exact same thing. It's got the same numbers and everything. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go x squared plus 6x plus a box equals 27 plus a box, because it's an equation. There's an equal sign, which means what I do to this side, I have to do to the other side. I cannot just pick and choose what side I do it to. I have to do it to both sides. Okay, what do I put in the box? Well, I take b and I divide it by 2 and I square it. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. I put that in the box and I add it on both sides. Okay? So I'm going to rewrite this whole thing over here so we have some space. We have x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 27 and 9 make 36. That's a nice number. Okay? So now I can rewrite this as something squared. I have x. This is a plus, so I'm going to put plus. B over 2 is 3. Okay, this looks just like this guy over here. In order to get x by itself, I need to take the square root of both sides. This is why I was really glad this is a nice perfect square number. So the whole reason I took the square root was to get rid of this guy. So now on this side, all I have left is x plus 3. The square root of 36 is 6, but remember, when I take the square root of something, I have a plus and a minus. So now I really have two equations I need to solve. I have x plus 3 equals positive 6, and x plus 3 equals negative 6. So since there's two equations, I like to write it out as two equations so I don't get a little confused. So I'm going to go x plus 3 equals positive 6, and x plus 3 equals negative 6. And then I just solve. I solve each of them for x. I'm going to go minus 3, x equals 3, minus 3 on this side too, x equals negative 9. And those are my two solutions. So that is how you solve an equation by completing the square. Again, you're going to have 3 examples down here and a word problem. I'll go through the word problem too, where you're going to have to solve by completing the square. If you think you can do it without watching the video all the way through, please do so. If you need some extra help, watch the videos all the way through. I encourage you to try them on your own first. You have this example here now to refer back to, but if they're a little bit complicated, go ahead and watch the videos anyway. Good luck.